Is up? What is up, YouTube? I'm still trying to get this second
The fallout from Disney's live-action Snow White remake has become a cultural lightning rod, with Rachel Zegler at the center of a storm that spans animated roasts, box office flops, and a growing backlash against the company's creative direction. What began as a $270 million attempt to reimagine a classic fairy tale has spiraled into a cautionary tale about audience fatigue, corporate missteps, and the risks of alienating the very fans a studio relies on. Family Guy, South Park, and even whispers from The Simpsons have turned Disney's struggles into punchlines, while Ziegler's public persona has amplified the controversy. As Disney eyes an even more expensive remake of Tangled, reportedly with Zegler attached, the question isn't just whether they can recover, it's whether they've lost the trust that once defined their legacy. The trouble started long before Family Guy aired its now infamous roast of Disney's Snow White. The 1937 animated classic, a cornerstone of Disney's identity, was always going to be a tough act to follow. Its story, rooted in a fairy tale about a princess with skin as white as snow, carried cultural baggage that Disney's modern sensibilities were eager to address. Casting Rachel Zegler, a Latina actress, in the titular role was a deliberate choice, signaling a commitment to diversity and a reimagining of the character for a new era. But the decision ignited a firestorm online. Critics argued that the casting strayed too far from the source material, pointing to the character's defining physical traits in the original tale. Supporters, meanwhile, celebrated the move as a step toward inclusivity, arguing that fairy tales should evolve with the times. Zegler didn't shy away from the debate. In a series of TikToks and interviews, she defended her casting, emphasizing the importance of representation and framing the remake as a necessary update. But her comments went further, critiquing the original film itself. She called the 1937 version weird and outdated, suggesting that the prince's role bordered on problematic. For many fans, this crossed a line. Remaking a beloved classic was one thing. Dismissing its legacy felt like a betrayal. The backlash grew, fueled by a sense that Zegler wasn't just reinterpreting Snow White. She was rejecting the story that had captivated generations. The controversy took on a political dimension when Ziegler's public activism came into focus. Her vocal support for Palestine, including signing a letter calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza conflict, drew both praise and criticism. The situation escalated when her co-star, Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen, entered the conversation. Gadot, a prominent advocate for Israel, has long been a polarizing figure in certain regions. The tension between the two actresses' public stances turned Snow White into an unlikely battleground for geopolitical debates. In Lebanon, the film was banned outright, not because of Zegler, but due to Gadot's presence, as the country has a history of boycotting projects involving Israeli figures. What should have been a fairy tale became a diplomatic flashpoint. Then came the moment that crystallized the film's struggles: Zegler's ill-fated Instagram story. In an attempt to generate buzz, she posted a clip of herself walking into a theater for a Snow White screening, holding a bouquet of flowers and radiating excitement. But the camera revealed a nearly empty auditorium. A handful of viewers sat scattered across the seats, with no trace of the energy expected for a Disney blockbuster. The internet pounced. Memes flooded social media, with users joking that Zegler was attending the loneliest premiere in Disney history, or bringing flowers to the film's funeral. The moment wasn't just embarrassing, it underscored a deeper disconnect between the movie and its audience. Family Guy seized on this disconnect with surgical precision. In a recent episode, the show didn't just mock Snow White, it took aim at Disney's entire modern playbook. One scene features Peter Griffin wandering through Disneyland, looking bewildered. In the background, a roller coaster labeled Disney stock plummets, a not-so-subtle jab at the company's financial struggles. The episode doubles down with a gag about identity confusion in Hollywood storytelling. Peter watches a TV show complimenting a character's appearance, only to be corrected, "That's a boy." The mix-up repeats until Peter snaps, shouting, "What is everything?" The line, chaotic and absurd, struck a chord with viewers. It captured a widespread frustration with narratives that feel rewritten for the sake of ideology rather than story. Online, "What is everything?" became a meme, shorthand for audiences overwhelmed by Hollywood's rapid redefinition of familiar characters and themes. Family Guy's roast wasn't an isolated incident. South Park had already taken a sledgehammer to Disney's creative machine in its Joining the Panderverse special. The episode introduces a satirical version of Kathleen Kennedy, the Lucasfilm president who oversees much of Disney's recent output. Armed with a mystical pander stone, this Kennedy reimagines every franchise by inserting diverse female characters, regardless of narrative fit. The result is a multiverse where classic characters are replaced with self-righteous, corporate-approved versions, leaving Cartman and the audience reeling. The episode's defining moment comes when the Kennedy character declares, "Put a chick in it and make her gay." The line, equal parts absurd and incisive, went viral, encapsulating critiques of Disney's formulaic approach to diversity. South Park didn't just mock Snow White, it dissected the studio's reliance on predictable, market-driven reinventions. The animated roasts weren't the only blows Disney faced. George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, added fuel to the fire during a panel discussion. In a viral clip, Lucas openly criticized Kennedy's leadership and Disney's handling of his franchise. His comments, delivered with a mix of humor and bluntness, drew uneasy laughter from the crowd. For a studio already under siege, the sight of its own legend-turning critic was a public relations nightmare. The criticism extended beyond animation and industry icons. Conservative commentators, YouTube essayists, and online forums piled on, framing Snow White's failure as a symptom of Disney's woke agenda. Whether the label was fair or not, the narrative took hold. Disney was losing touch with its audience. The box office numbers told a grim story. Snow White, with a budget approaching $270 million, grossed just $184 million worldwide. Even Disney insiders acknowledged the underperformance. Jonah Platt, son of producer Mark Platt, was more candid, pointing to Zegler's public comments as a key factor in the film's struggles. Her interviews, social media presence, and perceived disdain for the original story alienated fans who might otherwise have given the remake a chance. The vibe, as Platt put it, was off, and no amount of marketing could fix it. Now, Disney is doubling down with an even riskier bet, a live-action Tangled remake reportedly budgeted at over $500 million with marketing. Zegler's rumored involvement has already sparked backlash, with fans questioning why Disney would attach a polarizing figure to another high-stakes project. Tangled, a 2010 animated hit, holds a special place in the hearts of millennials and Gen Z. Its story of Rapunzel, with its blend of humor, romance, and adventure, doesn't cry out for reinvention, yet Disney seems determined to push forward, even as Snow White's failure looms large. Online, the reaction is preemptive and fierce. Hashtags like Nanger Save Tangled are gaining traction, with fans arguing that the studio is prioritizing branding over storytelling. The backlash isn't just about Zegler's talent, which even her critics acknowledge. It's about what she's come to represent, a corporate-driven push to reframe classic stories in ways that feel forced to many viewers. Audiences aren't rejecting diversity outright. Disney's own Encanto and Moana were celebrated for their fresh, culturally rich narratives, but Snow White and its ilk feel like lectures, not escapes. When a studio spends $500 million on a remake, the expectation isn't just quality, it's a story that resonates. Right now, Disney's track record suggests they're struggling to deliver. Family Guy's history of provocation offers a clue about where this saga might head next. In its controversial Quagmire's Dad episode, the show introduced a trans character, Ida, only to follow with a scene where Brian vomits upon learning her identity. The moment sparked outrage, but Family Guy leaned into its reputation for pushing boundaries. If they're willing to go that far, there's little reason to think they'll stop targeting Disney's missteps. Their Snow White roast was just the beginning, and the show's fearlessness makes it a wild card in this ongoing cultural skirmish. The Simpsons, another Disney-owned property, could be next to weigh in. For decades, the show has skewered pop culture, politics, and media with a sharp but accessible wit. Recent episodes have already taken aim at Disney's excesses, poking fun at Marvel fatigue, Star Wars saturation, and the remake machine. A direct jab at Snow White or the Tangled remake feels inevitable. Unlike Family Guy's shock tactics or South Park's nuclear satire, The Simpsons' humor carries a unique weight. When they mock something, it's not just funny, it's a cultural verdict. If they turn their lens on Disney's current trajectory, it could cement the narrative that the studio has lost its way.